Well, welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Rhody Football Gameday. I'm Noah McLean alongside Connor DeRoja and Johnny Blair. As folks, once again, we have another fantastic show for you as we get ready for the home season finale for the Rhode Island Rams. They get set to take on UAlbany Great Danes 1 p.m. right here on Meade Stadium. We have another fantastic show for you guys. We're going to be talking about the usual. We'll break down Week 11 in the CAA, preview this week's conference play, who's going to be in the leaders of the pack, who is at the bottom, and then those kind of middle floaters that are still trying to find themselves in a spot for playoffs. We're going to talk fun games and segments, give our seniors some shout-outs as well, and a heck of a lot more, along with our favorite segment, which is prediction, all those things that will follow. So all of that right here on another episode of Rhody Football Game Day. Well, guys, before games kick off at 1 p.m. on Saturday, let's break down last week in the CAA. We start where Towson take down Hampton to the tune of a 27-10 victory in Maryland. Both teams walk away with a 5-5 overall record. The Tigers jumped out to a 27-0 lead going into halftime. The Hampton's lone touchdown didn't come until there were 2 minutes left in the game, so not a lot to show there for that squad.
And then we're going to go up to New York, where UAlbany lost to Stony Brook 24-6 in a low-scoring game until the second half. Stony Brook's offense finally got going in the second half, where they scored 17 points, as the team continues to be led by their running back, Ronald Dempster, who finished with 98 yards rushing on the ground and 2 rushing touchdowns.
Yeah, next up, Villanova took care of business as they stopped North Carolina A&T as they improved to 8-2 on the season. And, the Aggies are now 1-9 overall. Not a great season for North Carolina A&T. It was a big game on the ground for Villanova as they rushed for 223 yards, averaged nearly 6 yards a carry at 5.7, and had three touchdowns.
Yeah, there's still no wins in that CAA as well. Something important to know. In a shootout down in Virginia, Elon pulling off the upset against William and Mary, 40-36, the final there. Quarterback Matthew Downing, guys. Another big effort. 315 yards in the air, 4 passing touchdowns, 1 interception, and hey, why not add another one with his legs? He had a total of 5 touchdowns that day. I'd say that's a pretty good boost to his resume.
Absolutely. And now we're going to go up to Maine, where UMaine beat Bryant 38-26, having about as good of an offensive game as a team could have. Led by quarterback Carter Peavy, who had almost as many touchdowns, 4, as incompletions, where he had 5. With receiver Montego Moss also having 7 catches for 122 yards and 2 touchdowns, and their top 2 running backs combined for 26 carries and 155 yards, and of course another touchdown on the ground. Just an all-out assault by the Black Bears.
Yeah, next up, Rhode Island rival New Hampshire secured its 6th win of the season in a 33-20 win over Monmouth. This Monmouth offense has kind of been faltering these last few weeks. Coming into Rhode Island, averaging nearly 40 points a game, and held under that mark for the last few. The Wildcats offense tried and kind of had their way with this Monmouth defense. They only averaged 2.9 yards per carry, but receiver Logan Tomlinson had a game of his life almost with 9 catches for 140 yards and a receiving touchdown.
Yeah, big thing to look out for is that New Hampshire team continuing, and you got to wonder, was it that Rhode Island game that kind of stunted Monmouth's run for this season to make something out of it? But now we look, Campbell unable to upset the conference-leading Richmond Spiders at home, falling 27-24. Boy, what a game that would have been for Rhode Island to look at if they had been able to pull that upset off. A game-winning field goal by Richmond's Brandon Peskin secured the Spiders' comeback down there. Richmond now has just 2 games remaining at Hampton and then home versus William and Mary, and a 6-0 record in CAA play. They are in the driver's seat right now in the CAA. Lastly, Rhode Island Rams lost for the first time, guys, in CAA play down over there to the Blue Hens in Delaware, 24-21. A lot to break down. We'll talk about that more in just a little bit as we move into some of the standings, guys. Richmond, as we just talked about, sitting atop of that CAA with a 6-0 record, 8-2 overall. Rhode Island now tied with a 5-1 record alongside with Villanova, Stony Brook, and Delaware, who is ineligible. That's Delaware who's ineligible on that one. So that game hurts for them, but obviously not too much to worry about there. And then you talk about only New Hampshire remains among the two lost teams in the CAA, but they need to win out and get some help from a couple other things in order for them to have a shot.
And now let's take a look at what's coming this Saturday in the CAA. We're going to start off with NC-A&T at Towson, Villanova traveling to Monmouth, Richmond going to Hampton, and Campbell going down to Delaware.
Yeah, next up we got Bryant traveling to William & Mary, UAlbany coming here to Meade Stadium to face our Rhode Island Rams, Stony Brook taking on New Hampshire, and then Maine at Elon. Rams are positioned nicely for the playoffs. We do have to win out, but two solid matchups that we definitely can take care of. But there is some things that could help the Rams, even if we do drop one of these games. So we're hoping for Monmouth to beat Villanova. Who knows? Villanova's kind of been a powerhouse these last few years, but Monmouth's offense can go off at any time. Hampton would be nice if they can beat Richmond, and New Hampshire beating Stony Brook.
Yeah, and guys, I mean, when you look at those games, obviously the Monmouth and Villanova game, that's, something that you're looking for. But the game that stands out to me right now is that New Hampshire and Stony Brook game. That's the game that I think is really kind of most realistic in some sense. We know what New Hampshire can do. That's not to discredit Stony Brook in any way because we know that they're a very talented team as well. But interesting to see what they will do as well. We'll be right back. When we come back, we'll have the Leaders of the Pack segment and a special guest will be back this week. Kyle Rail joins us next.
Welcome back to Rhody Football Game Day, where we are back here with our guest analyst, Kyle Reel, where he's going to take us through some of the leaders of the pack on this Rhode Island squad.
Thank you, Johnny. Yep, back again to tell you about the leaders of the pack for the Rhode Island Rams this season so far. And here's, where they rank in the CAA leaderboards. Running back Malik Grant is 4th in the CAA in rushing yards with 853, needing only 147 to break that 1,000-yard rushing mark. Wide receiver Marquise Buchanan ranks 3rd in the conference as well in receiving yards with 765 and 5th in receiving touchdowns with 7. Linebacker Cole Brockwell ranks 5th in the conference in total tackles with 84. And outside linebacker AJ Pena ranks 2nd in the conference in tackles for loss with 15 and also 3rd in the conference in sacks with 8. Gabe Solomons is 1st in the entire CAA in assisted tackles for loss with 9, and cornerback Braden Price is tied for 6th in the conference for pass breakups with 7 of them.
Thank you, Kyle. We will be right back here on Rhody Football Game Day with the game previews and predictions segment, our favorite segment to do here on this show. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back on Rhody Football Game Day.
Well, guys, now let's jump into some of the preview for this week's matchup between UAlbany and Rhode Island. Let's begin with some of the history. We go back to 2013, the first meeting. The Rams currently lead the all-time series 6-5, a small edge in that margin, with the last win coming in Kingston back in 2022. Now, that one was back in 2023, an embarrassing loss, unfortunately, for the Rams. That would go on to hurt them more so than they would have liked. Obviously, UAlbany going on to be co-conference champions last year. Some of their numbers, rushing for over 200 yards and 300 yards with 4 touchdown passes in the air. Shout out, though, to outside linebacker AJ Pena. He was having a highlight reel game. Per usual, he had an interception and returned for 28 yards in that one.
UAlbany this season is averaging just under 18 points per game with an average of 327 total yards per game, which is a pretty big drop-off in both categories from that team that we saw last season. And then offensively, UAlbany averages just under 18 points per game with an average of 327 total yards per game, which both of those are steep drop-offs from the team last year. But offensively this year, the Rams are about a 50-50 split between their pass game and their rushing game. But really, they've struggled to get either one of them going all season long. On the ground, they average just 3.4 yards per carry and average 110 rushing yards per game, while just averaging 217 yards passing.
Yeah, no, defensively, this team gives up almost 30 points a game. This team is the Monmouth's dream. They give up 28.5 points per game and almost 5 yards per carry. Not a recipe for success. And 21 passing touchdowns allowed as well, all while having 50 more offensive plays than their opponents in 2024. UAlbany does not find success find success in controlling the time of possession, though, unfortunately, with a bad yards per carry average. But the storyline on Saturday will be their kicker. Their kicker has been 8 of 15 on field goals this season. That's not something that's helping when your offense is struggling. Your defense gives up almost 30 points a game. You can't have your special teams falter as well.
Yeah, certainly some numbers and players to watch. Well, guys, let's jump into some of the other players that Rhode Island will be focused on watching in this matchup. Van Weber, we'll talk about the quarterbacks here. He's one who's found more success and threw more passes than Trey Lindsay a week ago, but Lindsay offers a very explosive dual threat option. You talk about senior receiver Seven McGee averaged 69 receiving yards a game and has 10 more receptions than the next receiver behind him. He is going to be a guy that Rhode Island has to know where he is at all times. Linebacker Dante Lunan leads the team with 96 total tackles. He is explosive. As now we will jump into some of the Rhode Island preview of things.
Yeah, now jumping to the other side of this game. The key to success for Rhode Island is to keep the running game going, establish the ground game early with Malik Grant, Deion Silas, and even Gabe Sloat. Give him a little bit more love than what he's seen so far this season in the offense. And then strong hands. We cannot afford to have any big drops. A problem that Rhode Island has had so far this season, just kind of costly mistakes, mental errors that if you want to be a competing team in the CAA, you just can't have. And then also keep UAlbany sticking to the dink and dunk plays. No explosive plays for this offense. Try and make them string together long drives so that they can tire themselves out, make more mistakes, and then win the special teams battle. We talk about it all the time on this show. Just being able, it's the unsung hero of every good team. Having a good special teams unit does translate to winning, and Rhode Island's going to have to win on that front.
And speaking of winning, let's see who we have in some of our predictions for this contest. We're going to start with Connor. And Connor, the first question I have for you is which team and player scores the first touchdown?
Yeah, I think Rhode Island gets off to a hot start. I think this team is mad at that Delaware loss, going down to a team that would be ranked inside the top 10 in the FCS if they weren't moving to FBS next year. And, still moving down 8 spots in the poll. I think this team is mad. They're upset. And I think Rhode Island's going to show it on the first drive of the game and just run it down their throat. Malik Grant, I think, gets in from about 5 yards out.
For me, I also am going to echo that sentiment about this Rhode Island team being frustrated. That was a tough loss on the road to a very good team that's about to go to the FBS. And the poll had them drop 8 spots, which is, some say it's a little crazy. I'm on that boat. So I think that they're going to come out hot, and I think it's going to be Greg Gaines who gets in first.
Yeah, guys, I mean, we talked with head coach Jim Fleming, and I actually had the pleasure to be down in Delaware. I think one of the things that comes to my mind is emotions, right? And when you talk about the ability to win 8 games, but also you want to go down and win every single game, there was a lot of emotions in that locker room and on the bus ride back. But I think to your guys' point there, the emotions are going to be high here for senior day. It is also just a time for them to rebound, and I think Rhode Island comes out, and I'm going to go actually Marquise Buchanan. He's going to get the first touchdown. He's going to start us off. Now, the second question, we're going to jump in. This is a big one with who is leading going into halftime. As we talked about so many times, guys, Rhode Island has struggled to do that. But, Connor, maybe some of your thoughts.
Yeah, I think Rhode Island goes up, into half up big. This defense, I think they're going to be flying around. This UAlbany offense has struggled, and this defense is the highlight of this team. A.J. Pena, Cole Brockwell, Braden Price. This defense has been flying, and I think they make a statement. I'm not sure what Rhode Island puts up, but I think they shut out UAlbany in the first half.
Johnny?
I hate to keep playing copycat, but he's taking the words right out of my mouth. I have them leading 10-0 going into halftime, and I think that, like we said, this UAlbany team has struggled to string together explosive plays to get either the ground game or the pass game going at the same time. And so I think Rhode Island, is going to be flying around on the defensive side of the ball, and I think they're going to shut it out in the first half 10-0.
similar but not the same. I'm going to go 17-3 Rams going into halftime. I do think that the kicker of UAlbany will be able to slip one through with a little bit of help, perhaps from some luck. But alas, I think to your points, guys, the defense really has prided itself in just playing every single possession with a lot of emphasis, right? You talk about that defense being spectacular, and when you look at the weaknesses of Albany, I think the eyes light up to this defense of Rhode Island. So again, 17-3, my prediction going into halftime. And then let's talk about maybe a player specifically who will emerge in this one. Connor, we'll start with you.
Yeah, this offense starts and ends with Marquise Buchanan at the wide receiver position, okay? There's a reason he's so high up in CAA ranks. There's a reason he's the number one wide receiver here, and I think he's in for a big game. I don't think Rhode Island in the second half especially will be throwing the ball a ton because I expect us to be up big, but I think he gets in the end zone twice today, maybe both in the first half.
Johnny?
For me, I'm going to stay on the offensive side, but I previously mentioned the importance of getting the ground game going, and I think on senior day, Malik Grant is going to find the end zone and have a big day.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Wesley Neal here. I think, guys, when you talk about emotions, I've said it multiple times on this show. He's the guy when you come off, he may not be hooting and hollering, but he is always going to make sure that every guy is locked in. He is so dialed in, and I think that this is his opportunity to go out and really put a performance on there. I'm going to say he even gets up over that pile, gets a hand on a blocked field goal attempt maybe once. But he's just really showcasing his talent, and I think he's out for revenge. And now let's get to the most important part right here. Let's go final score prediction. Connor, what do you got?
Now listen, I'm mad. This Rhode Island team is mad. You guys are mad. The rest of the creative team is mad at how drastic of a change in the polls that Rhode Island dropped from one loss. We've dominated the CAA in our entire conference, an entire schedule outside of Minnesota and outside of Delaware. So dropping 8 spots, 5 in another was I took it personally. I found it disrespectful. And there's a reason I didn't give a score going into halftime because I think the Rams are going to win this one 45-0. I think Jim Fleming on senior day is going no holds bar. I think he's going to run the starters as long as they can go. Gabe Slow, I think, gets in the end zone too. I wanted to sprinkle that in here somewhere. Senior from Rhode Island. And I think it's a statement victory. Not a great team in UAlbany. So in order for the Rams to gain spots in the poll, we need some dominant victories like a 45-0 victory here today.
For me, it's not going to be quite as nice as 45, but I'm going to go to 25, but 25-3, that final score. I think Rhode Island just controls this game. I think that they keep the pedal to the metal the entire time, and I think they just have a nice controlling victory. Easy win on senior day.
I'm going to go 38-14. I'm going to go somewhere right in between you guys once again. I know we've kind of had that a couple of times. But I think that Rhode Island, again, Connor, to your point, this is a team that has a lot of emotions right now. They're upset. But I also think that they have showcased that they have an ability to channel that disappointment, that upsetness. They've done it all year long. They felt a couple of times where they've seen maybe we should be higher in those rankings. Maybe we should have more respect. But I think that right now you kind of put all of that aside. You have to focus on the game, every snap, every rep. And I think, to your point, I think Jim Fleming does a fantastic job with just preaching that right there. But again, the final score prediction for me, 38-14 in favor of the Rams. And that is all we have for you this week. Thank you for joining us for our Senior Day and Salute to Service episode. A shout out to all the seniors. And if any of the service members, active or retired, are watching this, thank you for your service. We appreciate you more than we can express. Then again, guys, one more episode next week as Rhode Island will face off against Bryan. Make sure to tune in. But for now, Connor DeRosa, Johnny Blair, myself, Noah McClain, staying safe, stay dry, and go Rhody.